Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Ira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. Welcome all of you that missed part 1 and 2 and 3. We missed you. And I'm not going to review everything, but I'll review what we did this morning, if that's all right. So we've been discussing a very famous and wonderful and informative and very controversial, in one sense, section of Srimad Bhagavad. Controversial in the sense that Queen Kunti's prayers directly and explicitly and purposefully address conflicting qualities that are within Krishna that Kunti finds to be not comprehensible to her, and in fact not comprehensible to anyone. And that's part of her appreciation of Krishna. It's part of his wonderfulness, the features of Krishna. So the section that we discussed this morning was one of those inconceivable features of Krishna, and that is, he's unborn, and yet he takes birth. There's a whole mess of them. He has nothing to do when he performs activities. So many. He hides himself, he conceals his identity as if he's human. And not only that, he then appears in other species as if it demeans himself. He's a very perplexing personality to understand. By empiric method, one cannot. And by devotional method, one to some extent can, to the extent that Krishna discloses himself. We heard this morning about his partiality and impartiality. So we can say he's partial, you can say he's not partial, and we can say he's both partial and not partial. And all of those are within Krishna. No problem. Because in him, all opposing aspects of existence are resting within him. No problem. It's part of his glory. It's part of Kunti's appreciation of him. And right behind her is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur going, rah, rah. He's very special. So this is a little review of the verses from this morning. And we'll recite this verse together. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. And I'll read the translation. Oh my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So here's our little summary review of the verses. 4 verses we discussed this morning. Again, they're all centered on this unborn yet born contradiction that's within Krishna. And then the previous verse states that many people have many opinions about you. Vishwanath, I like. He says, so in his commentary, so who's going to decide? And his answer is no one. Because who can decide? And that's the message of the verses 29 and 30. And now, so some of those different voices that say different things, the reason for Krishna's appearance. Whoops, this is 31. My dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed. So this is, I'm behind. Anyway, Mother Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears which washed the mascara from your eyes, and you were afraid. Not he was play acting. Oh, I'm supposed to be afraid. Mother Jasoda wants to punish me, and I'm playing the role of her little child, and so I have to act afraid. Okay, I get it. And he acts afraid. Not acting afraid. She's understanding he was experiencing fear. Really? You were afraid. Though fear personified is afraid of you. This side is bewildering to me. It's one of the... This is entering the realm of rasa, but in the realm of rasa, Kunti has reverential love toward Krishna. And those that have reverential love can't understand those that have no reverential love, but they know that they have love. such love that Krishna reciprocates with the love of Mother Jasoda by lovingly, not pretending, but experiencing fear. So, we heard. Generally, this is taken from Prabhupada's purport. Generally, the Lord is worshipped by the devotees in a reverential attitude, but the Lord is meticulously pleased when the devotee, out of pure affection and love, considers the Lord to be less important than himself. So the image is Vaikuntha. There's Lord Narayana seated upon a throne, and other forms of Vaikuntha residents that look four-handed like him and dark in complexion like him and even have garments like him. This little child is going to have to go somewhere. Kirtan is over. He's dressed very nicely. Okay. So this is Vaikuntha, where the mood is reverential. The Lord's pastimes in the original abode of Goloka are exchanged in that spirit where the persons consider him less important than themselves. So in Vrindavan, they see Krishna as their equal. They may see Krishna, we saw a number of images where Krishna is treated as the inferior. In wrestling matches, he always loses to Sridham, although he has power that's unlimited to kill Kamsa with one punch. Who can kill somebody with one punch? And all the demons of Vrindavan, this Asura and that Asura, and no problem. But Sridham defeats him in wrestling. So they don't have reverential love, they have this other kind. And so we saw different examples, again taking Prabhupada's words. The friends of Krishna consider him one of them. They do not consider him to be of reverential importance. Games that the cowherd boys will play, there's Sridham. Because he's the victor, Krishna has to carry him on his shoulders. There's Sridham here. And he's feared by feared personified. So this is an image I found on the website looking for fear personified. That's the best one I found. Does that look like fear personified to you? Anyways, it's some artist. He who is feared by feared personified is afraid of that little lati in the hands of Mother Yashoda. And he cries. And tears come streaming down his cheeks. And the mascara that she put on in the morning, just little drips down at the side of his cheeks. And seeing that image, of course she didn't see it, she wasn't there, but she heard. And hearing, it just bewilders Devaki. There's a fear personified image from the website too. Okay. By saying fear is afraid of you, Kunti shows that her awareness of Krishna's power, but at the same time, she accepts it's true that he was internally feeling fear. It would not be possible for her to be bewildered if she thought he was only imitating being fearful. There's that little stick. Fighting with great warriors, he defeated, 11 Akshohini divisions of soldiers of Jarasandha, single-handedly, without anybody else, and he's afraid of a little skinny stick in Mother Jasoda's hands, and he cries. That's because he's Bhaktavatsala. The most outstanding of all of Krishna's outstanding qualities is he has such love for his devotees that he likes taking a position of being inferior to them, although he can overcome all others running, Mother Jasoda can catch him, or can bind him, and so many other manifestations of Krishna's Bhaktavatsala. Verse. Text 32, we discussed this morning. Some say, this is the speculators, or some have this, not speculators. Some understand the reason for the unborn being born is for the glorification of pious kings. And others say that he is born to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. So there's some hills in the background, but I selected this image because this is ISKCON Malaysia's farm, where they grow sandalwood trees. So those are what sandalwood trees look like. And up top, this is King Indradumna being approached by a Brahmana who is informing him, you want to see the Lord? Yeah, I'll tell you where you can go to see him. Niladri, and Nilamadava is there. And here's how you get there, and here's what he looks like, and go, King Indradumna, go to Niladri. So he goes, and he sees Lord Jagannath instead. So when Krishna appears in the line of King Yadu and his descendants, the Yadu dynasty, then Krishna takes a name, or many names indicating the family in which he appeared, or the dynasty, Yadava, or Yaduvira, or Yadunandana, etc. Because Krishna is all glorious, he takes birth in the dynasty of Yadu, so Yadu becomes glorious. And Dwaraka becomes glorious because Krishna performed his pastimes in Dwaraka. This is Narada visiting Dwaraka and seeing these different palaces of Krishna, where he's manifesting another inconceivable feature, that is, simultaneously Krishna is present in each one of the 16,108 palaces that he created. His opulence is inconceivable. Who can make 16,000 palaces? And who can manifest himself simultaneously in each one of them? Answer, nobody. But Krishna can. He can do something, he can do anything. He can do things that others cannot do. And therefore we worship him. So now that worshipable Lord appears, some say, the unborn becomes born to satisfy kings. So the king mentioned by Vishwanath is Yudhisthira. Because during Yudhisthira's time, he was known as Punya Shloka. Punya, because he was the emblem of piety. Punya Shloka, that person who's addressed as the pious person, Punya Shloka. He appeared to glorify Yudhisthira. And so we know about Yudhisthira because Krishna appeared as his cousin. Lord Sri Krishna is just like the sandalwood that grows in the Malaya hills. Krishna is not like sandalwood, but like sandalwood that grows in the Malaya hills, it's so well known for sandalwood growing in the Malaya hills. Even you grow sandalwood somewhere else, it's sometimes called Malayan sandalwood. So Krishna appears in the Yadu dynasty, so he's Yadunandana, like that. Or Parthasarathi, or Nandanandana, or Yasodanandana. These personalities become honored because Krishna's pastimes with them. The next, Text 33. Others say that since both Vasudeva and Devaki prayed for you, you have taken your birth as their son. That's a good reason to take birth as their son. Undoubtedly, you are unborn, yet you take your birth for their welfare and to kill those who are envious of the demigods. He took care of Kamsa pretty quick, and so many other demoniac kings who were overburdening the earth. So these names then are also known for names of Krishna. Devaki Nandana, not so much Vasudeva Nandana. Reference to the austerities they performed. Well, they performed the austerities in this lifetime as Suttapa and Prishni, so that's mentioned in the purport. And then Krishna appeared as their son, Prishnigarbha, and in 2 successive lifetimes, same personalities. There's some spiritual technology involved in all of this, but that's okay. Kashyapa and Aditi had as their son Upendra or Vamana, and Krishna appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So why did the unborn take birth? Because they underwent austerities, severe austerities, for a long duration of time, simply to purify themselves and qualified themselves to have the Supreme Lord as their son, so he did. Then the other verse we discussed this morning. Others say that the world, being overburdened like a boat at sea, is much aggrieved, and that Brahma, there's Lord Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so you have appeared to diminish the trouble. Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya shaduskritam. So there's Lord Brahma at the edge of the ocean of milk, Kshiradakshai, Vishnu, seated on Sheshanag, the goddess of fortune, at his lotus feet. Garuda's over here, and the Devas are over here, appealing to the Supreme Lord to appear, and he does, on Brahma's behalf, on behalf of Mother Earth in the form of a cow. Some say that. And they're all valid reasons. Not, okay, which one is right? We discussed, how do you handle when there's multiple people say, this is right, and others, they don't necessarily say, no, that's not right, this is right, but this is right. So how are we to decide? And they're all right. It particularly becomes they're coming from authoritative sources on the strength of Scripture, that scripturally it's true. Each of these things are true. So now comes our verses for this afternoon. Starting with text 35, we'll go through 38. And it's going to be tight to finish all of Kunti's prayers this evening. Let's see how it goes. So starting with 35. And yet others say that you appeared for the sake of rejuvenating the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshiping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. So I want you to note Bhavesmin klishyamananam avidya karma karmavi Shravana smaranarnani. So, according to, who's this? Yamaraj. Who are these guys? Yamadutas. The Yamadutas, after they were checked by the Vishnu Dutas from taking a Jamila, they were astonished. Who's ever stopped death? No one stops death. Who were those fellows? So beautiful, so charming, so wonderful. Who were they? Where did they get their power from? We thought you're God, because who's greater than death? But does that mean there's two gods? They say, deductively, that would be a problem. Because supposing this God and that God disagree, then we really have a fix. So if you think that we're qualified to understand, please help us understand. And one of the responses given by Yamaraj, the one that's just before he says who the 12 Mahajans, is this Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. The principles of Dharma are established by Bhagavan. So it's Bhagavat pranitam, by Bhagavan. So Krishna, from time to time, he comes to reestablish Dharma, exactly as he says in Bhagavad Gita. So that's one of the reasons. From the purport, of this verse, this is text 37. No, 36. 35. Okay, here we go. A living being cannot, this is from middle of the purport of text 35. A living being cannot help but render service because he is constitutionally made for that purpose. The only function of the living being is to render service to the Lord. The Lord is great, and living beings are subordinate to him. Therefore, the duty of the living being is just to serve him only. Unfortunately, the illusioned living beings, out of misunderstanding only, become servants of the senses by material desire. This desire is called avidya, or nescience. And out of such desire, the living beings make different plans for material enjoyment centered about perverted sex life. Therefore, he becomes entangled in the chain of birth and death by transmigrating into different bodies on different planets under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Unless, therefore, one is beyond the boundary of this nescience, one cannot get free from the threefold miseries of material life. That is the law of nature. And so I wanted to read that for two reasons. One is, it's so nicely written. And another is, I wanted you to see how Prabhupada has taken the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and taken it from something that's very tight and factual and just taking the Sanskrit terminology. And he's making it, palatable and understandable for the Western audience or the world that aren't necessarily Vaishnavas, just for anybody, or not scholars, just anybody at all. Very, very palatable. So, Prabhupada continues, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, because he is more merciful to the suffering living beings than they can expect, appears before them and renovates the principles of devotional service. So that's why he comes. Now Vishwanath, you'll see in a moment, he says that's the real reason. He puts a lot of weight on that one. The other ones are not wrong, but that's the real reason. Because Krishna can do these other things by some other means. He can send somebody else to do these other things. But he has such affection for his devotees and those persons who have gone astray. From time to time, he comes himself. And what I've done in the next verse, I'm just going to go through this very quickly. He's reviving the 9 processes. 2 things, besides the list of 9. Some of them are himself, and some of them are his devotees. Most of them are his devotees. Through his devotees, Krishna is teaching the 9 processes of devotional service. Starting with hearing, Maharaj Parikshit, and I put in these bold letters, or yellow, that they're devotees attaining the stage of perfection through the process of devotional service, but they went through some ordeal. Maharaj Parikshit certainly did. He was cursed to die in 7 days. Or Shukadev Goswami, well, he didn't have a problem. He stayed in his mother's womb for 16 years, but his mother had a problem. Chanting, spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. Prahlad Maharaj never forgot Krishna, despite constant tortures from Hiranyakashipu. Serving the Lord's lotus feet, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is always engaged in serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Deity worship, Maharaj Prithu used all his royal possessions as offerings in pure devotion to the Lord. Well, he had some ordeal too. He's an incarnation, but he had some problem with Indra. He wanted to do 100 yagyas, and Indra was pulling tricks, stealing the horse, and other things. So he was advised, just, be satisfied with 99. You don't need the extra one. Indra's got the heebie-jeebies. You're okay. You don't need the extra one. You're an incarnation. Akrura, well, he certainly had his problems later because of taking Krishna from Vrindavan. But he offered prayers as he was leaving Vrindavan, heading for Mathura. And those prayers were offered after, by Krishna's kindness, it says directly in the Bhagavatam, Krishna showed him the spiritual world right there in the Jamuna River. Very special place, Akrura Ghat. Executing orders, or dasyam, Hanuman, despite all kinds of difficulties, he always remained in Ramchandra's service. And even there were obstacles and difficulties, he overcame them by Ramchandra's mercy. Arjuna was so close to Krishna as a friend that the Lord offered himself to be his chariot driver and serve Arjuna and his brothers in various ways through all their tribulations. So on the path to becoming a perfected soul in any one of these 9 processes, don't worry if you have some difficulty. You have good company. These great souls all had some difficulty. Bali Maharaj, complete surrender. Although his own spiritual master was against him doing so, he surrendered everything, all his possessions as well as his head, for the 3rd step of the lotus feet of Vamana. Now here's Vishwanath. I like this. This is the real reason for the Lord's appearance. First, there is ignorance. There is ignorance. The ostrich sticking his head in the sand. Ignorance. Just ignore stuff. But the original ignorance is ignoring Krishna. And then from avidya comes desire, kama, too much desire. And then comes action, fruitive activity. You, Krishna, come to engage those suffering due to actions arising from material desires, which are due to ignorance, in actions for attaining prema. Ignorance of actions for attaining prema. They don't know. They're in ignorance of prema bhakti and how to achieve it, what actions to perform, because they're covered with all these other things. The destruction of suffering is incidental, because it is said in the next verse that the result of hearing about the Lord is seeing the lotus feet of the Lord. By seeing the Lord, one attains prema. So we're given the process. The Lord descends for this reason, to give the process of hearing and chanting that removes ignorance, that removes desires, that removes fruitive activities, and brings us to the position of prema. Because we're engaging in activities that result in prema. And we're going to hear some more about that. Queen Kunti's prayers just keep getting more and more elevated, actually. Text 36. Oh, Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Some of you may have noticed that in Prabhupada's preface to Srimad Bhagavatam, that appears in every volume printed of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's one verse that he has quoted from Narada Muni that comes in Canto 1, I think it's chapter 6, chapter 5 or 6. 5? Yeah. Yes. It's shown next. So it starts the same way. Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti, but it ends Sadavaha. So this is Abhikshnataha. Tadvag Dasargo Janata Agha Viplavo Yasmin Pratishlokam Abhadyavatsapi Namanyanantasha Yashon Kataniyat Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadavaha. This is Narada instructing Vyas why he's feeling despondent and how to overcome that, and compose one literature that just engages in glorification of the Supreme Lord. For by so doing, Janata Agha Viplava, the sins of people in general are annihilated. The reactions and even the sins, again that sequence of vidya, kama, and karma. It's all obliterated just by this process of Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grinanti. So great souls, Vyasadeva, Narada, and under the indication of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the whole of the disciplic succession, and the followers of the members of the disciplic succession engage in this activity. Because through this activity, the pernicious effects of the age of Kali, or material existence, are destroyed. So Prabhupada goes through in the purport an explanation of, if seeing the personality of Godhead is the goal, that's insufficient, because there are persons who have seen the personality of Godhead. Because they don't have proper vision, they can't see, although they see. And he refers to these 5 special people. Ravana, well, he saw Ramchandra, but he thought Ramchandra, he's just a human being. And I'm a very powerful mystic, and he may have some great powers, but I'm more powerful than him, because that's how he thought about himself. He couldn't see even though he saw, because of his offensive mentality. Or, next is Hiranyakashipu. Well, Hiranyakashipu he saw all kinds of things. He saw how powerful was Prahlad. He saw the devotion of Prahlad, which he couldn't break. And he saw the mightiness of Lord Nrsingadev. But he still couldn't see, although he saw. Or Kamsa. He saw, before he was dragged down off of his sitting place, he saw Krishna. He heard about Krishna before he saw Krishna, just like us. We've heard about Krishna. And by hearing about Krishna is the means of coming to the position of seeing Krishna with the proper vision. Kamsa saw, but he didn't see. And there's Jarasandha. There's Jarasandha seeing, there's Krishna and Bhima and Arjuna. They went to have a little contest with Jarasandha. He saw them, and Jarasandha refused to fight with Krishna. He said, he's a coward. I won't fight with him. And Arjuna, he's insignificant. With that big, strong one over there, I'll fight with him. He's a suitable match. And, of course, Shishupal. Shishupal was a direct relative of Krishna. Like, the Pandavas were direct relatives of Krishna. But he had this attitude issue, so even though he saw Krishna, he couldn't see Krishna. In fact, his business was to vilify Krishna. Even he was standing there in the assembly, pointing at Krishna, saying bad things about Krishna. So seeing Krishna requires having the right eyes to see Krishna, is the idea. They were highly qualified by material assets, but they were unable to appreciate. So how does one come to the position of appreciating? By the process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, or Shunvanti, Gayanti, Grananti Sadhavaha. When the hearing process is perfect and complete, the other processes become automatically perfect in their own way. So we place our emphasis on exactly what we're doing right now, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, which is exactly what Maharaj Parikshit did. And we're hearing the messages of Shukadev Goswami in disciplic succession, hearing Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Prabhupada giving their explanations of these things. So we're applying the right principle. And another comment that Prabhupada makes is, don't hear from the wrong source, from people that wish to go jump ahead to the 10th canto and saying poo-poo on the other cantos. Those are persons not to hear from, although they may be popular. One should not consider that Krishna's dealings with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the gopis. So here's Krishna with the Pandavas, here's Krishna with the gopis, and we consider both because of the same spiritual substance. Of course, there's variegated differences, and there's something of the love of the gopis, which our acharyas regularly speak about, but that doesn't mean we consider the topics that we're discussing now, the prayers of Queen Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, to be something lesser. Queen Kunti appreciates, she's helping us appreciate the love of the residents of Vrindavan, including Mother Jasoda and including the gopis. So here's the last verse of this, or last slide on this verse. Vishwanath's translation and then commentary. Persons who constantly hear, sing, speak, remember, and sing to others about your activities, they alone, without delay, are able to see your lotus feet, which destroy the influence of material existence. His commentary. This verse shows the actual reason for the Lord's appearance. They and not others see for certain. It is not that they do not see. That's like checkmate. They see without delay. Ari achirena, not after a long time. Your lotus feet, not the lotus feet of one of your expansions. Those lotus feet destroy the influence of material existence rather than prolong material existence. Your form is not without qualities in order to appreciate the beauty of the Lord. His six aspects need to be seen. So we see through the hearing process. That's an interesting concept. the first seeing is through the ears, Prabhupada would say. How do you see through your ears? Well, hear nicely and then you'll understand what seeing through your ears means. Just like Kunti is speaking about, when I see that feature of your crying as Mother Jasoda is coming after you with a stick and trying to bind you, that sight bewilders me. She didn't see it happening, but she saw through hearing. And so many examples. Rukmini never saw Krishna, but she heard about Krishna. She heard about Krishna from Narada. And by hearing about Krishna, she wanted to marry Krishna. No text message or website or, send your profile, please. None of that. She just heard. Text 37. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Again, he who has no activity executes his duties himself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? And why is she saying that? Because all the demoniac kings were killed. Well, those kings had replacement kings. Their sons or somebody became the next king. So now those sons or whoever became the next king is at enmity with the Pandavas, at least some of them. And so you're leaving? How can you leave? You've taken care of your duties. You've restored Dharma. There was adharma prevailing, and now you've restored Dharma. This is what you do. Yudhisthira is now the king, a virtuous king, is the king of the world, emperor of the world. So your task is completed, yes, but it's not completed because this is also required. Please give us stay and give us protection. Now, I want to read the purport of text 37. Imagine Srila Prabhupada sitting in the Radha Damodar rooms. Many of you have seen his rooms. And you've been given an order by Bhaktisiddhanta to go to the Western world and give the message of Lord Chaitanya. And you're considering yourself unqualified to do so, but the order is there, and so somehow or other you must. And to prepare for this mission impossible, you're sitting in Radha Damodar rooms preparing Bhaktivedanta purports so the Western world can understand Lord Chaitanya's teachings, in this case through the prayers of Queen Kunti. So here, with that thought in your mind, Prabhupada's writing to the world. That's his audience, the uncultured world outside of India that don't know anything about anything cultured, transcendental messages. The Pandavas are most fortunate because with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt at becoming independent of the laws of nature. Beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven, down to the present age, they are trying to overcome the laws of nature. Who needs to worship somebody to go to heaven? I'll just build a staircase to heaven. Sound familiar? I mean, the method may be different, but you'll just build some spaceship and go to this planet and that planet. We don't need to become pious or anything like that, follow scripture or anything like that. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power, but the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and to become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna. But they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were highly qualified, both by personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfection of life is, therefore, to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the world. He's repeating himself for some reason. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anatta, or without any guardian, whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanata, or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to become sanata so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. That's the Pandavas, although mighty and powerful. They want Krishna to be there and be their protector. Just sharing something that's anecdotal, but it's on topic. Once upon a time, I was in India visiting a university, and I was to lecture on this verse one particular morning for Bhagavatam class. Some of you have already heard me describe this. So after Mangalarti, it was really quiet. I was staying on campus. And so I went for a japa walk. Real quiet, except for the street dogs. And they're quiet, but they're very, very territorial. And you come near where the group of street dogs hang out together, because they're kind of like gangs. You come by, and one hears a little noise, and he lifts his head, and he goes, woof, woof. And then the whole chorus of all the other ones go, woof, woof. And Phil growls, stay away from our territory. Keep walking. So, and I went, down a distance and then turned around and came back. And as I was coming back, by that same place where the dogs were, their territory, a professor was coming by with his little white poodle. In the one hand, he had a stick, and the other hand, he had a leash for his poodle. And then, so as the professor's going by, I was over there and saw the scene. There's, one dog lifted his head and woof, woof. And the other dogs went woof, woof, and stood up and started charging at the professor and his little dog. So in one swoop, the professor took his little dog, put the little dog under his arm, and with his other hand shook the stick at the dogs. And they stopped barking. And they looked at each other, looked at the stick, and went back and laid down. And the little poodle under his arm, because as the professor was walking, you can see little tails going like this. And he's licking the professor's cheek. And he's completely calm and, because he's Sanata. And then, the other ones were Anatta. They're street dogs. They don't have a master. And so they have to, behave like street dogs. They don't have a master. Similarly, devotees should not be parasites, but they understand that Krishna is their protector and Krishna is their maintainer. These are two of the 6 principles of surrender, according to Padma Purana, quoted in Nectar Devotion. While I'm at it, I'll tell you one other one, that the provider one. Same. Krishna is my provider, Krishna is my protector. Rakshishati vishvaso goptritre varanam tava in Sanskrit. One time I was going from Mayapur to visit another place, an overnight train to visit another college somewhere in India. So at least what I've done when I travel in overnight trains in India is as soon as I get in the place where I'm going to stay, I request the top bunk and then immediately take rest. Because what I want to do is be able to get up early in the morning before all the other people in the train get up, go and take a little bucket shower in the bathroom so it gets dry enough so people can go in and they don't get all wet. And then, so there's my morning shower, and then chant before people get up. I have my rounds chanted, and then people get up and start, going to get their tea and doing what, they're looking at the newspaper and all the things that people do when they ride trains in India. So it was a first-class compartment, and so after other people in the compartment started to get up, I had finished my chanting. I was going down to the bottom place and reading a book. And the gentleman across from me, did his, you have to brush their teeth too. That's one thing they do. Brush their teeth, get their tea, and then get their newspaper. Those 3 things. So he got his newspaper, and he was holding his newspaper in his lap, and he looked at me. And he said, "So?" And I knew it was going to be, something ugly. Do you need money? So I knew where he was coming from. I said, everyone that lives in this material world, they have necessities. And for those necessities, there must be money. Then he said, because I'm, do you work for your money? He's saying, you're a parasite. That's what he's saying. And if you don't work for your money, where do you get your money? You're living off of people like me that work hard. You parasite. He didn't use that part, but that was the subtext. And I said, the difference between you and me is I work very hard. I may work harder than you work. I was up, 3 hours before you stopped snoring and got up. I didn't say all that. I said, I work very hard, but I don't work for money because I understand the one that's maintaining me is the same one that's maintaining you. But I don't think you understand that. And his reply was, He took his newspaper and flipped it up so he didn't have to look at me. A devotee understands, aside from, people with an attitude, a devotee understands that Krishna is their maintainer and Krishna is their protector. However they be active in their life or be able to protect themselves like the Pandavas. They understand Krishna ultimately as their protector and Krishna is their maintainer. And for that reason, they're fully surrendered unto Krishna and under all circumstances, not only the adversity ones. One more verse, and we'll stop for questions after that. Whoops, this is the verse. This one. Text 38. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will at once end. Now, Kunti, but we hear some more this evening, but Kunti has this conflict, as women that are married may also feel this conflict of they have some loyalty to their family, and then they have the loyalty to their husband and the children of themselves and their husband. They feel some affinity or some special affection for their family and from their mother, father's family. They feel it's natural. Kunti's we're going to hear this evening, Kunti's praying, please take the material portion of that affection away and just leave the spiritual portion, please. But the spiritual portion is based upon Krishna. And as far as Krishna is concerned, if Krishna leaves, then whatever it is that we have that's glorious, it'll also be gone. So please don't leave. We're not attached to the opulence and the glory. We're attached to you. Let's hear how Prabhupada speaks about this. Text 38. It's a short purport. Kunti Devi is quite aware that the existence of the Pandavas is due to Sri Krishna only. The Pandavas are undoubtedly well established in name and fame and are guided by the great King Yudhisthira, who is morality personified, and the Yadus are undoubtedly great allies. But without the guidance of Lord Krishna, all of them are non-entities, as much as the senses of the body are useless without the guidance of consciousness. No one should be proud of his prestige, power, and fame without being guided by the favor of the Supreme Lord. The living beings are always dependent. And the ultimate dependable object, guess who? Krishna. We may therefore invent, by our advancement of material knowledge, all sorts of counteracting material resources, but without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in fiasco, however strong and stout the reactionary elements may be. Pretty convincing, isn't it? Like, what are you going to do after hearing all this if you don't surrender to Krishna? Not possible. If by hearing nicely from Kunti, there's only one thing. Take full shelter of Krishna. Take full shelter of Krishna. And so the next message is, please take away anything else. Anything else. Doesn't mean become callous, but the material attachment part, the material affinity part in relationships with kinsmen, the Yadu dynasty, again, it's right here, the Yadus, that's her father's side, and the Pandavas, that's her husband and her side. She knows her place. She's in both families. And she wants to see the as mothers want to see, the success of their family. But the material attachment part, she doesn't want. The spiritual attachment part, she wants. She knows when Krishna is with them in Hastinapur, the Yadu clan is going to be missing Krishna. And when Krishna goes to Dwaraka, then the Pandavas and she are going to be missing Krishna. And she has feelings on both sides. And it's tearing her heart. So take away the material portion. Of course, Krishna is capable. If he can expand into 16,108 Krishnas in Dwaraka, he can expand himself and be in Hastinapur and Dwaraka at the same time. Right? So that's a good question. How come Krishna doesn't do that? That would solve some problems. And for that matter, he can expand another Krishna in Vrindavan and everybody's happy. Just like one of the final chapters in the 10th canto, I'll try to wind up. Krishna came into this world to give association to his devotees. That's one of the things that we're hearing. To propagate the message of devotion, and through his devotees doing that, but to give his direct association. So there was one king very far away from Dwaraka named Bahulashva. Krishna hadn't gone. So out of his affection for his devotee, who had affection for him, he wanted to give his association to King Bahulashva. It's a very nice chapter. Krishna took a big army, a big entourage, and ministers, and whole big deal. And on the way to the kingdom of Bahulashva, he stopped at many places and also gave his association to many kings. He's very kind. And when he got to King Bahulashva's kingdom, on the outskirts of the city, Bahulashva came, and one Brahmana who also happened to be a pure devotee of the Lord named Shrutadev, and pretty much the scene is they both asked him, please come stay with me. So what's he going to do? He expanded 2 Krishnas. He went with both of them. That's what he did. And then when he left, he merged again into one Krishna, back to Dwaraka. So part of that mystery is Krishna's opulences or his potencies are unlimited, and another is if he doesn't do something, there's leaving Hastinapur and going to Dwarka, because he left Hastinapur. It happens some chapters later. But he goes to Dwarka. So all the residents of Hastinapur are feeling terrible separation. And then when he enters into Dwaraka, it's a wonderful celebration. Terrible tribulation and wonderful celebration. Meeting and separation. It's just part of the joy, the ecstasy of loving Krishna. It's not always going to be this way. It's going to be this way and that way. That's how it is. So, but in the spiritual world, it's not a world of duality, it's a world of ecstasy. And all those apparently contradictory features are all within Krishna. Makes Krishna very lovable. And the only problem is us, not him. How weak is our desire to be in that relationship of loving exchange with him. That's where the weakness is. That's where the fault is. And with that, taking care of that one thing, all other things that are weaknesses or shortcomings or something, that'll be addressed. Just that one thing. And hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, according to our great acharyas and Kunti Devi herself, is the best means. So here we are, trying. Any comments or questions? And our devotee in the sound booth is going to help us with the microphone. Here he comes.
Guru Maharaj, in the first verse that you covered today, where Queen Kunti says, Krishna, don't go, there are so many other people remaining who are at enmity with us. Is she saying this, is she really feeling that way, or is she saying because of her desperation, she's kind of making an excuse for Krishna, don't go?
No. She understands that Krishna is feeling fear, and that's what's bewildering her. She understands it, and he is. Not the fear like you feel, or I may feel, or conditioned souls may feel. Transcendental. He's reciprocating. He's feeling that feeling. Not like you're feeling when you feel fear. And he's crying. Real tears. It's not the other kind, crocodile pretend tears.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, I think maybe...
Did I misunderstand your question?
No, maybe I misunderstood your answer, most likely. In the verse where Queen Kunti says that don't leave because they are still the sons of the kings who are at enmity with us.
Oh, that one. I thought you were saying that the tears that she saw in the stick in Mother Jasoda's hand.
No,
not that one. Okay. Well, where are we? Which one is it? Do you know the text number? Huh?
37.
37?
Yes, 37.
Too many slides. This one?
37.
The 37. Okay.
Yeah. So she says, now when all kings are at enmity with us, is that she's really feeling that way, or she's just kind of making an excuse out of her desperation to have Krishna be in Hastinapur?
Well, there's enmity. It's real. She's not imagining it. She's not making it up. She's not pretending. She's not making an excuse to trick Krishna or something. There's enmity.
Pandavas they're already so powerful. They've already kind of taken...
Well, without their power comes from Krishna. I mean, she wants Krishna to be present, not just, I have powerful sons, see you later, Krishna. She wants Krishna to be present. You know the situation later when Arjuna accompanied Krishna back to Dwarka. There was a plan. Please, showing proper courtesy and dignity and respect to Krishna, Arjuna, amongst the Pandavas, you go accompany Krishna. It's like, socially very nice. But there was another purpose. What's Krishna going to do next? Because they didn't want to talk about it, but they intuitively knew Krishna's going to leave. And Krishna left. So Arjuna was then looking after the queens one time, and some cowherd men with their sticks approached the queens. Arjuna tried to repel them, and the cowherd boys defeated them. He says that in later chapters. So he then understood that the power that he had on the Kurukshetra battlefield was from Krishna. And when Krishna withdrew that power, of course, Krishna doesn't have to be on the battlefield in order for Arjuna to be powerful. But the power that he had was from Krishna. So the real message is, she wants Krishna to stay. So your question is it just an excuse to get Krishna to stay? Or does she really feel that Krishna needs to stay in order that the enmity of the other soldiers can be repelled? Well, it's both. The most important is she wants Krishna to be present. That's the most important. But she's feeling, as are the Pandavas, dependent upon Krishna for the power of her good sons, which he can do remotely. But when there's a problem, Krishna comes. So she's using this argument. We've got a problem. You may think, the problems are gone, all the wicked soldiers and generals are gone. But the problem isn't over, so please don't go. That's both. Primarily, she just doesn't want him to go, but she's not. You can't trick Krishna. Come on. There's a real problem. Yes, in the back? Oh. Right next to you, here's one question.
I have two questions. The first one is, during the course of her prayers to Krishna, is he reciprocating with her at all in any form? And would you be able to elaborate on that?
He's seeing which now?
Is he reciprocating with her at all?
I can't follow.
Reciprocating?
Reciprocating with?
With Queen Kunti at all during the course of when she's revealing her heart to him.
He's just silent. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, she's on a roll. He's hearing. It happens sometimes. Not like, and again, the Bhagavatam isn't like a transcribed recording. There are many things, if you're familiar with, broader presentations on a certain episode, then there's intervals that in that broader presentation, there are things that are part of the back and forth. So he may be saying something in response or not, but he's hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
And the second question is, at the end of the class, towards the end of the class, you mentioned like separation being ecstatic, ecstasy and separation. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, it's something that Prabhupada has taught over and over. That is, separation makes the heart grow fonder. So it's an ecstasy of feeling separation because the heart has grown fonder. So it's an ecstasy, although it may look anguishing because it hurts, separation. But it intensifies the feelings of love. So that's ecstatic, intensifying feelings of love. And then anticipation of meeting. And then when there's meeting, like with the gopis, when they would meet with Krishna, even when they're with Krishna, they would anticipate very soon Krishna is going to go. So that's intensifying the feeling of love while they're with Krishna, that soon Krishna is going to go. It's ecstatic. It increases the feelings of love. Yes?
Hare Krishna. The question is for Anatha and Sannatha, because I understand that Krishna is protecting everyone regardless of you knowing or not. So Anatha meaning that you are just not aware that Krishna is protecting you?
Correct. Yes.
But it's the same thing, right?
Well, it's the same thing, but it's a different thing. At the same time, it's different. It's the same, but it's different. That is, the consciousness, like one of the messages that we heard is Krishna partial or impartial. So the sun and Krishna are being compared with one another. The sun shines everywhere, but according to the receptivity of the object upon which the sun is shining, or the qualities of the object upon which the sun is shining, the experience will be different. So Krishna, in that one sense, he's giving his protection to everyone. But some people say no. Or some people say, who are you? Or get out of here, or, different things. According to their quality, there's protection or not protection. So Krishna doesn't interfere when they say, get out of here. He gets out of there. He protects more remotely, or he engages that process of protection through the external energy, which is like the state creating a prison house. Good laws are to protect the citizens, and law breakers need to be punished, or at least kept separate from the law abiders. So they're put in prison. So there's protection for the prisoners to put them in prison, and protection for the good citizens. They don't have to be in prison. So it's the same, but it's different, depending upon the consciousness of the person who doesn't want. Just like the street dog and the little poodle that's under the arm of the professor. They're both protected, but they're quite different in their disposition. So their experience is different, and so therefore sanata, anatta. Same for us. We can be not devotees or devotees, and you could say, well, it's the same because it's the same. Krishna's protection is there if you're not a devotee, so why bother?
The other question was for this morning you showed that slide of that sandalwood forest. And you explained that it is like famous, and that's how Yadu dynasty was, because Krishna was born. But was there any other significance of that other than that?
Well, because it's in the verse and it's in the purport, I wanted to have a visual to help connect what was in the verse and in the purport.
Yeah, I'm not going for the slide, but I'm just thinking that in verse, sandalwood, that was prominently being said.
Yeah.
And there must be some property of Krishna is like sandalwood growing in this.
No, it's not like that. Okay. Krishna is like sandalwood in the sense that where the sandalwood is, at least historically, most popularly grown was in Malaysia, the hills of Malaysia. So, therefore, the term became popularly known as Malaya sandalwood. Similarly, because Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty, Yadu becomes well known because Krishna appeared in his dynasty. Otherwise, you wouldn't know about King Yadu other than Krishna's in his line. Like that. Who knows about Malaya sandalwood? Or sandalwood? It can grow anywhere. So the Malaya part becomes well known. And therefore, those other names, Parthasarathi and Yashodanandana, that's the connection, not the property of sandalwood itself. This, the Malaya part, is the connection. Okay.
Maharaj, the question is about having faith that depending on Krishna is the right thing to do. That one doesn't need to. One only needs to take shelter of Krishna.
Do you have a doubt?
I suppose, Maharaj. I'm thinking for myself. My faith comes from the scripture, Srila Prabhupada. It comes from my own experience, and then from seeing what happens with others contemporarily. I know in the scripture, it's clear to me, like such as these pastimes.
Yeah, it's really clear.
In my own experience, when I'm not so Krishna conscious, that things don't seem to work, and when I'm more Krishna conscious, things seem to work. So that the proof is there for me. I'm wondering, maybe this isn't the best question, but I'm just wondering if contemporarily today within ISKCON, do you see that when devotees, even without Varnashram Dharma being so established, do you find that when devotees here, then they give everything to Krishna, then Krishna, somehow it works out for them?
Well, two things. Varnashram is, Prabhupada's explanation of the need for Varnashram is because the primary means of spiritual elevation through Bhagavad Dharma, hearing and chanting Gayatris, and our direct devotional practices are not being taken up properly by our members, Prabhupada was observing. Therefore, they're becoming weakened, and therefore not protected from Maya, and therefore Varnashram is required. I mean, he said many things, but that's one of the things that he said on a number of occasions. So on that basis, if one does engage in very strong hearing and chanting, then one can be lifted above those safety net. Prabhupada called Varnashram as a safety net, so we wouldn't fall down completely. We would have the safety net to catch us if we tried for the full surrender program and didn't happen so well for us. So we come to Varnashram. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that those who are followers of Varnashram are not fully surrendered. That was one of Arjuna's arguments, which Krishna said, even when you become perfect, you'll still perform exemplary acts because others will follow you, even if you're beyond Varnashram. An example of that is Bhaktisiddhanta. He demonstrated he was beyond, and yet he entered into one of the ashrams by taking sannyas as a facility for his preaching. He didn't need that to preach. But he was demonstrating by example, even you may be beyond, take that position. So, does that hit your question?
To an extent, yeah, Maharaja.
Okay. Can you give the microphone to the gentleman behind you?
Yeah.
There's a question up front here. Gail had her hand up. And then we're going to end because Madhupati has requested that we end at 10 after 5. Gail, put your hand up.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a couple of short questions, actually.
Okay.
I'm referring to the fact that Krishna does not cry crocodile tears.
Okay.
I heard in a lecture one time, I believe the lecturer was reading the purport of one of the Queen Kunti's prayers, wherein one of the acharyas was quoted as saying, referring to Krishna's crying as if afraid. That was the quote, as if afraid.
Okay.
And so that quote made it sound a little bit like crocodile tears.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering how to interpret that quote.
Well, something that you missed in their morning session was the topic of when one great personality speaks on a particular subject this way, and another great personality speaks on the same subject in a different way, and yet a third on the same subject in yet a different way, kind of like what Queen Kunti is saying, some people say this and that and the other thing. It is not necessarily you're asking for a comment. It's not necessarily that, well, it's got to be this way or that way, because that way cancels out this way, and this way cancels out that way. So it's got to be one or the other. That's like, the binary processor says it's got to be one or the other. And that's not necessarily so. That is to say, depending upon one's relationship with Krishna, one may see the same thing in a different way. And it's perfectly valid, provided it's in accordance with Scripture. So some acharyas will say this, and some acharyas will say that on the same thing, and that's okay, provided it's in accord with Scripture. Now, and in this particular case, that's like a general reply. Now, specific to this, as if afraid, I would want to see the commentary on as if afraid what they say, to say, what might they mean by that? It seems to say crocodile, but maybe that's not what they meant. So I'd have to see the context to comment further on it.
The other quick question was, I was just wondering how Shishupal is directly related to Krishna.
I heard it once, and it went real fast. I didn't catch it. Does anybody here know the answer to that question? I'll research it and find out and let you know. But I forget. Yeah.
Since those were so short, I just have one last question.
Okay, one last.
Okay. I think in maybe yesterday's lecture, you had said that describing Krishna's inconceivable qualities and how, he has these many qualities and he keeps increasing his qualities.
Yeah.
But in the Nectar of Devotion, wherever it's listed, his 64 qualities, so how to reconcile?
Oh, that's no problem. Krishna is not limited to 64 qualities. Those are maybe outstanding qualities, and then so many other qualities and sub-qualities of those qualities, and Krishna is not limited. You know that. He's not limited to 64 qualities.
Yeah, I was just wondering if those are broad categories.
I was wondering why you would not ask that when you first heard Nectar Devotion, saying, what? Krishna has only 64 qualities? What's wrong with him?
I've asked this question a couple of times.
Oh, okay. Principle. And then unlimited. Okay, so we're going to take a break for, what is it, Devaki? 15 minutes? 5:30, what happens? Tulsi Arti. So you're welcome back at 5:30 at Tulsi Arti. I have over here in this brown paper bag something very special, Radha Govinda Mahaprasadam. I'm going to just walk around and you stick your hand out and I'll put something in it. Okay? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.